my colleague Roberto Castaldi for this conference that it is really interesting, but also for the speakers that we have the chance to listen that and their relations that are very high quality and effectiveness. Today we will follow our work with 3 speakers, and we will going to listen before the Professor Armando Catania that teaches commercial law, and he has an innovative perspective. He will propose an innovative
I will try to do it.
Perspective on the digitalization of organization within the society with regard to the top management of the society. And I will give him the floor.
Thank you so much, Fiorella. As you correctly said, I'm trying to introduce partial new perspective about the role of the management within the companies, because my field of studies is focused about the corporate organization, and inside it's about the different role played by one end by the corporate body. I mean, of course, the administrators, the directors, as you prefer, of the company, and on the other end by the executive managers. So the problem is in a general way in corporate law to establish which is the role played by the executive within the company. I mean that what is so much studied or explored, as you prefer, or investigated, is the role played by the directors in the company. But as we know, the leadership of the company is not just in the hands of the directors, but is for a great part conducted by the executive. So the problem is distinguish inside this general category between the mere executives and the top executive, because of course the top executive or senior management, it depends if you use an Anglo-Saxon, so referred to Great Britain classification, they prefer talk about senior managers. If you refer to the US system, they prefer talk about top management. If you refer to the Italian system, there is not an equivalent expression, because we talk everybody we define everybody such as dirigenti,
Alta dirigenza.
alta dirigenza, but what is exactly the dirigenza? I'm not so sure about it. So just coming back to my own topic, the main goal posed by this time is referred to the role played by the digitalization inside digitalization, not only tools, but of course the plane of the assumptions of decision inside the company. So let me just give a look to the perspective I want to try to expose, moving from the communication we are examining. I mean, of course, the conference for the future of the Europe. As is known, produced 49 proposals and 26 specific missions focused on 9 themes, including a stronger economy, social justice and employment, and digital transformation. So the annex to the communication, as is equally known, has defined 4 categories of responses. Initiatives already underway that respond to the proposals, initiatives for which adoption is requested by the European Parliament and the Council, planned actions that follow up on the ideas based on new reflections arising from the conference, new initiatives or areas of intervention inspired by the proposal and which fall within the competence of the commissions. So I intend to focus exclusively on the last of these 4 categories of responses, and in particular about new initiatives of sectoral intervention inspired by the proposal and which fall within the competence of the Commission. I want to place this one in relation with the only 2 themes I selected among the 9 overall identified by the Commission. I mean, a stronger economy, social justice and employment, and digital transformation. With reference to the first of these 2 themes indicated, namely a stronger economy, social justice and employment, 6 major proposals emerged from the Conference on the Future of Europe aimed at strengthening the economy, social justice and employment in the EU, including that of improving the functioning of labor markets so as to ensure fairer working conditions and promote gender equality. The EU member states and social partners must work to address the issue for the rights of digital platform workers. So this is the question. We are assisting at a world which use in a very special way platforms to organize labor relations within the company. As you know, everybody, I suppose, once a time at least has used the social food reader to have something hot or cold at his own home. Every time you order something to a social food reader, you are dealing with the organization level within that company. I mean, that the position inside the company of that level is conditioned by your choice. For example, if you context the delivery or something goes wrong about your order, or if the RIA is not so able to manage your order and so on, you are, by just a platform, giving back your feelings, writing them on the platform, you are deciding for next to 50% the role of that man within the company. So for me and for everybody as me trying to study corporate law, it means that the executive of that man with relation with the organization of the labor is not only a man, but becomes for the rest of 50% of 100%. So for the 50% remaining, became a platform. So it arises for us the need to investigate as the platform has to be considered in the organization of the company. So is it part to make a decision by a man, or is something that's decides by her itself at the same level or a different level of a man? So when you are trying to establish which is the exact organization of the company, you have to consider only men, or you have to consider also a relationship, strong or low. It is not important with the platform. So if you have to indicate someone as for example, an executive of the company, is it a man using tools placed on the platform, or is a man who have a relationship with the platform? So the platform is a part of the organization of the company too. So what we are assisting in the recent years, but I think not exactly we have to talk about years, but we could more correctly talk about the recent months, is by the parts of the corporate law, just a stronger attention to some teams, for example, as the platforms are made, who projects the platform, how they release their results, but it is not really investigated how the platform can deal with the man in terms of assessments of the organization of the companies. So what I would like to do is to starting from this. This is just an example. Now I will try to do one more, is how we have to consider at the refers to the legislation still in force in Italy, not of course with a perspective to the rest of Europe, this role played by the platforms. I mean, in a very quick way, we have referring to the civil code, that is of course the main law that's we apply to the companies. We have just this organization, the governance body in one end, and the executives in another, and deployments at the lower level. But we have to reconsider that if till some years ago digitalization were considered just a tool used by people working within the company, now digitalization or some digital process could be, this is the goal of my research, could be at the same level of one of these three fields. I mean, for example, Professor Mosco in Rome suggested the idea that we could maybe soon meet a robot. So not only a board composed by human beings, by a board just managed by a computer. It means a digitalized board. Refer to the top executive, but to the executive at all. Is it possible to say that some one of them could be substituted by the digitalization? Unfortunately, because I am a human, I suppose to be a human being, is it for me not? It is possible. It is not really a good result. Because coming back to the example I made to the reader of a social food company, for example, it would say that, for example, the vacations or the hours of work that men are not decided by a man, but decided by a computer, just referring to the previous results of his work, of his job. So, of course, it depends in the way the basis of the digital decision are built, but you have to consider that some decision first as some played by a man will now played by computer. It will change the way we have to consider the structure of the company. So which is the main lack right now in this legislation is to consider if some decisions are taken by a digital computer, who is the one who has to control this kind of decision. I mean, it seems that legislation is focused just, for example, if you give a look to the IE Act, is focused on the way to build the digital processes. But as soon as you have built them, who has to control the rights functioning of them? There is no answer, in my point of view, inside of this legislation. The impression I have, but of course it's just a personal impression, is that EU was so scared to demonstrate that it was necessary have transparency inside this process, but now that the way to build transparency is written, there is no enough control by the man about the results of something could work in a transparent way. So when you reflect on this item, you can consider that you can combine this item with another of the terms identified by the conference, that is to promote digitalization measures that strengthen the economy and the single market in a fair and sustainable way, increase European competitiveness in technology and innovation, strengthen the digital single market for business of all sides, and make Europe a world leader in digital transformation and human-centric digitalization. In this context, with a view to contributing to the possible implementation of some of the proposals that emerged following the conference on the future of Europe, in order to achieve the expected changes, I intend to turn my attention towards the complex changes which are affecting the world of production, determined by the affirmation of a digital dimension, both on the side of the configuration of the administrative, organizational, and accounting structure of the company, and on that of the management of the workforce. So what I mean, if you consider the digital transformation, you have to think to some different roles inside the corporate body. Of course, I'm referring to the board, first of all, able to deal with these new competencies. So, for example, inside the digital, the corporate body, inside the board especially, you have to consider information about the functions played by the company will arrive not only because achieved by some men, but will arrive directly because achieved, collected, and transferred by a computer. So you need, of course, to have someone inside the board able to deal with this different kind, for example, of collecting information, because on that information depends, for example, the new initiative you are going to take, and so on. So is it possible, for example, it would be possible continue to refer to in Italy it's called the Direttore Generale, all over the world it's called as General Counsel. If some prerogatives of the General Counsel are made by digital tools not just used, so not just tools, but elaborated, but the same tool and transferred to the board. So I think, and this is the conclusion of just the end of my my thoughts, that we need to, now that the European Union wrote something about the construction of these digital tools, we have to write something about the best way, because this is not my competence, the best, of course, but just to try to contribute to do it, to try to traduce, to modify, of course, our legislation, including in our speeches the eventuality that some roles actually played by human beings will played just by digital tools. So the news about the past is that till now we have a legislation considering digital transformation as just a tool of which human being used by human being. Next stop will, in my opinion, to consider that digital tools could be at the same level in such part of the internal organization of the company of the human being. So we have to put out how human being can continue to govern these digital tools that could be occupy the same level in an organization. That's all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to you.
Thank you very much. Your speech touches very important points. But now we proceed with another speaker. Unfortunately, Stefania Baroncelli can't participate today because she has a problem with his car. And now we listen Flavia, the professor Flavia Zorzi Giustiniani. She is associate professor of European law at Link campus, and I am glad to give her the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Let me first of all thank you, the organizer of this very interesting event, Roberto Castaldi, and let me hope that the results of these reflections of these events will be shared and will have an effect on the public debate on the necessity to go on and finally revise again the European treaties. Well, my subject today is in fact considering that for now the likeliness of a treaty revision is not very probable for the immediate, at least. How in the field of public health we could go on with the treaties as they are, adopting another legal basis which is not focused on public health matters, that is Article 114 of TFU. In fact, as you know, this article constitutes the main legal basis for legislating in the internal market. And more specifically, it is also the general legal basis for the adoption of measures to approximate national laws. I remember that this article in particular provides that the Parliament and the Council can, in fact, shall, acting in accordance with the ordinary legislative procedure, adopt the measures for the approximation of the provisions laid down by law, regulation, or administrative action in member states, which have as their object the establishment and functioning of the internal market. Apart from the fact that this is the main legal basis for legislating the internal market, in fact, it is also the favored legal basis since a long time, because the alternative legal basis, namely Article 115, was not used very much, because Article 114, in fact, has greater flexibility of the decision-making procedure and grants a significant discretion to the institutions in adopting the measures, as it's specified in the same article, that is, which specific kind of acts to adopt. And moreover, the decision-making procedure is easier because it does not need unanimity, but just qualified majority for an act measure to be adopted. Well, clearly, there is an important fundamental prerequisite in order to regard to this legal basis, and this is the need either to bridge a gap or to resolve the conflict between national regulations for the purpose of the creation and correct functioning of the internal market. But in fact, in practice, this article has played a role so fundamental that it has become a really a passepartout provision, we can say. It is even in a matter which, in fact, belonging to concurrent competences, in principle, would and should require a rigorous identification of the correct legal basis. But we have to consider, first of all, that the notion of internal market, as was originally outlined by the treaty, and then in the second place interpreted by the institutions, in particular by the Court of Justice, has been interpreted in order to take into account the new needs for the protection of essential interests, also of a social nature. And this has imprinted, in fact, on Article 114, an expansive force, which apparent expansive force, but also a big potential that goes, in fact, beyond all possible predictions. Moreover, this article has also the particularity of not being linked to a specific subject, because, in fact, it allows legislative intervention by the Union, clearly for the purpose of harmonization, whenever the various national regulations hinder the creation of the internal market. This means that without prejudice to the sectors which are explicitly excluded from the general rule, which is referred to in Article 114, paragraph 2, so relating to tax matters and the free movement of persons and employees, the scope of application is extremely extensive, and its boundaries, in particular, are not easily traceable. The main limit, indeed, is the necessary connection between harmonization and the internal market. The Court of Justice, however, in its jurisprudence, has shown what we can qualify as a general reluctance to declare the invalidity of the measures contested. Now, let's go more specifically to its utilization with respect to the field of public health. In fact, Article 114 over time has also become the predominant legal basis in matters of public health. And such a predilection on the part of the European legislator originates first and foremost from the importance that the provision has attributes to public health. In fact, with regard to the values that the institutions must take into consideration when harmonizing legislation, Article 114 at paragraph 3 stipulates that any proposal for harmonization must be based on a high level of protection in the sectors of health and safety in particular. So these non-economic values in particular, the high level of protection of health are present in the article, but at the same time, they are peripheral to internal market interests. So they are not autonomous legislative goals within the internal market, but rather matters which may be regulated, but only insofar as necessary to prevent the internal market from doing some harm to these values. So this is clearly an important limit, but at the same time, this integration clause has effectively made this legal basis the simplest and the most widely used legal basis for the adoption of public health measures. And in fact, it is also affirmed in the doctrine that the proviso that is contained in the same article, unless the treaties provide otherwise, in fact, does not limit much the action of the EU legislator. In fact, because the provisions which contains express legal basis concerning public health, that is Articles 168 and 169 of the TFEU, are not dedicated to the achievement of the internal market. So this is they cannot really constitute a limit. This does not mean, however, that the recourse to Article 114 is always legitimate and adequate, especially when the primary objective, which is pursued by the EU legislators, concern the public health fields. And this, because this is, in fact, prevented, first of all, by the principle of attribution of competences, and more precisely, by the, at least in principle, preeminent character of state competence in matters of public health. And last and not least, by the conditions which have been imposed by the Court of Justice in its jurisprudence. But in fact, as far as the latter are concerned, we can say that these conditions and the interpretation that has been adopted by the Court of Justice, which is by now is uncontested, is extremely extensive. And this excessive interpretation, in fact, reinforces the already dynamic, per se, and expansive notion of internal market. And the effect is, in fact, that Article 168, that is the main legal basis of EU health policy, has been relegated over time to a de facto residual position. In particular, concerning the jurisprudence of the Court of Justice, in its case law on tobacco products, the court has affirmed that the recourse to Article 114 could be legitimate, and then it does not constitute an evasion of the express prohibition on harmonizations, which is, however, set by Article 168 and paragraph 5, provided that the measure in question effectively contributes either to eliminate trade barriers or significant distortions of competition in the internal market. At the same time, however, the court has affirmed that such obstacles may also be merely potential, even though their occurrence must be at least probable, at least likely. As far as the practice, we have also to remember that since the last time there has been a practice of adopting regulatory acts in the field of health policy with a dual legal basis, or in particular based on Article 114, together with other provisions of the treaties, and primarily Article 168. Well, in principle, we have to remember that the legal basis of an act in EU law should be unique, so there should be just one legal basis. But in fact, in particular, when we can identify a legal basis where the so-called center of gravity of the act is located, then this should be the only preferred one. Nonetheless, if a certain act pursues more than an objective, and no one of these objectives is prevalent, according to the Court of Justice, as well as also as followed in the regulatory practice, the use of more of a legal basis, or multiple legal basis, is authorized, let's say. And this use in particular of Article 114 and 168 has proved to be functional in overcoming the prohibition, which is contained in Article 168, paragraph 5, of adopting harmonizing measures. And this legitimacy has been recognized, in fact, by the Court of Justice, provided that the objective of the Act is to obtain a high level of health protection. What are, however, the limits of recurring to Article 114 in public health matters? Because the advantages, in fact, are many, but there are also different limits. First of all, we have to remember that there are some sectors which are specifically excluded by Article 114 at paragraph 2. Then there is the limit which is constituted by the function of the measures adopted, i.e. the creation of a single standard through harmonization. And it has been seen, however, that this limit has been considered satisfied by the court, even when the harmonization introduced is not full, but just partial. the use of Article 114 for the adoption of measures that push also health policy objectives risk, however, to neutralize the role which is assigned to the subsidiarity principle. And this has clearly the consequence that member states are prevented from maintaining a higher level of health protection at national level, as instead is specifically permitted by Article 168 at paragraph 4, with specific reference to the quality and safety standards of organs and substances of human origin, blood and blood derivatives. Closely connected to this limit is then also a danger of a certain and growing marketization of healthcare matters as far as its communitarized part is concerned. And so European health policy risks being shaped or better reshaped according to an objective, that is the integration of the single market, which is not its own, and which, moreover, can result difficult to reconcile with the objective of health protection. And last but not least, there is still the risk, more or less latent, of competence creep, a risk that, if verified, would take the form of a lack of legitimacy in the action undertaken by the Union. Let's now see some reference to recent practice. In fact, the use of this dual legal basis has continued in recent time. We can cite, first of all, as far as the pre-pandemic period is concerned, the regulations 745 and 746 of 2017, which are both related to medical devices. And more recently, a dual legal basis, so Article 114 and Article 168, has also characterized the regulation of 2021 relating to the assessment of health technologies, so health technology assessment regulations, which in fact begins by qualifying the development of these technologies as fundamental for economic growth and innovation in the Union, as well as essential for the achievement of a high level of health protection. With respect to this regulation, it's interesting to remember that, in fact, it is an old dossier which predated the pandemic period, but which in fact was, its adoption was postponed because some member states contested the compliance with the subsidiarity principle. And in fact, its adoption was made possible in the end, following clearly substantive changes. And these substantive changes in particular emphasize its technical nature and non-duplication of member state efforts. But in fact, the heart of the issue, the critical issue, was that clinical evaluation is an important and fundamental component of health policy, of which member states have their own prerogatives. And So as such, it falls within the sphere of competence reserved to states on the basis of paragraph 7 of Article 168. But in order to prevent this competence creep, in this case, in fact, the indication of the article is not the indication of Article 114 as a second legal basis is not sufficient. What maybe has been done in practice, which could resolve the problem, is the recognition of the possibility for member states to carry out their own assessment on the clinical added value of the health technologies which are covered by the Act. But clearly these solutions with this flexibility is problematic, considering that the Act adopted is not a directive by a regulation. So the risk is that the objectives pursued could be jeopardized. This is also a sign of the complexities of proceeding with the current legal basis, which do not confer enough competencies to the Union in public health. Before concluding, I would like to refer to an important recent initiative, that is the European Health Data Space. The European Health Data Space and the proposal for a regulation in this context was presented by the Commission in May 2022. And at present, the European Parliament has approved the final text of the proposal, while the definitive approval of the Council should arrive before the end of the year. So we don't have yet a final text. This regulation is very important and significant, because in fact it would constitute the first common data space created by the European Union, and it will create the single market for health data. But there are also some problems clearly linked to this creation. We have to remember that in the regulation, which establishes, in fact, the governance framework for the use of electronic health data at EU level, there is a distinction between primary use and secondary use. Primary use consists in the processing of personal electronic health data in the context of health and social security services, while secondary use consists in the processing of electronic health data for purposes related to the promotion, development, and management of healthcare, including research activities. This regulation, in fact, has clearly important implications for the organization and provision of health services and medical care. But what is interesting to note is that, in fact, the legal basis indicated in the text are Article 114 and not Article 168, but rather Article 16 TFEU, which is related to the protection of personal data. And it's also interesting to remember that, in fact, the indication of Article 116 as a second legal basis was included in the Commission's work program of 2021. And its addition to the text was in fact discussed in Parliament, but clearly without success. So in the end, Article 168 is just mentioned in the preamble, but in fact this mention has a different purpose. Because it aims to point out the national competencies regarding the organization and provision of health services should not constitute barriers to the free movement of electronic health data in the context of cross-border healthcare, including telemedicine, such as online pharmacy services. So this is quite paradoxical because well, the approach is completely different from the one that was adopted in 2011. I refer to the widely known directive on patient rights in cross-border healthcare. And so there is, in fact, a distortion of the traditional tension to preserving state attributions in the healthcare field. And this is, in fact, all the more worrying, considering, in fact, that the goods concerned are personal data which are related to health. And so, in other terms, they are super sensitive, we can say, data. And as such, they are subject to special protection, portion not just to the GDPR, but also to the NIST Charter of Fundamental Rights. So concluding with respect to this last legislative project, this is a very ambitious project whose final beneficiaries should be all European citizens. However, the protection of the sensitive and confidential nature of data related to the health of individuals would require to proceed gradually, increasing step by step the coordination of the relevant activities carried out at national level, and taking into account the different sensitivities which are in fact prevalent in the various member states. I conclude with a specific reference to some novelties introduced by this act. In fact, first of all, there is a lack of general prohibition on using health data for advertising. So, in fact, there is a prohibition, but it's not generalized. And then there is the possibility to access and reuse the electronic health data of EU citizens, once clearly anonymized or pseudo-anonymized by anyone. And this is a particular problem with respect to specific categories of data, for instance, genetic or genomic data, because it is almost impossible to anonymize this data. So, to conclude, also most recent practice highlights the continued relevance of the vexata question of the insufficient competencies of the Union in the health field, first of all, and secondly, of the tricks, we can say, that are used by the institutions to deal with them, and the dubious legitimacy of these instruments. And on the other hand, with the continuous and an inevitable, we can say, risk of further competence creeps if there were not a treaty change in a short time. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Your analysis is very interesting. It highlights many limits of European article, but also opens many perspective on the innovative action. Now we give the floor at our discussant, the Professor Luca Alfieri. Thanks. You can give the floor.
Thank you very much. Not a professor yet, but thank you for
We hope
for the future, but yes.
future.
Yes. So thank you very much for the speakers, and thank you very much for organizers to invite me. I really wanted to come, but unfortunately, I'm currently at the Nover conference in Turin of the Italian Association of Regional Scientists, so I could not join you, unfortunately, but I'm very happy that at least I can contact you online. A warning, I'm not a scholar in law. I'm an economist, so what I will, try to do are comments and questions from different perspective, maybe, let's say, and let's see what we can do. So concerning the first presentation. Also here in Turin, we discuss about, for example, the platformization of the economy. And nowadays, we know that if you consider data from 2021, the amount of apps available around the world was almost 2 million. Probably now we reach 2 million and we overcome 2 million. And these apps, they are providing different services. Now, one of the main point is the fact of non-territoriality of this platform. And so how we can, regulate something that by definition is not territorial because, the limit of the jurisdictions, right? And this point also, the technology is, at least the basic of the technology is available around the world substantially. So this was, right, an issue even for the European Union that, of course, was able to produce something like the GDPR that has had and is still having an influence on the legislations of different countries, but still it has its limits as well. So this is, of course, is an interesting, consideration to do when we're talking about the digitalization of the society. If we think about, I agree with Professor Catania that we have to find a way where we can, share our place with digital tools as human beings, of course. At the same time, I'm not so worried at the moment to, find out that we have a board of executive board where there are robots included, but at the same time, it's also true that there are issues to take into account. Already now, for example, you have in certain countries some, let's say, minor trials that are decided by robots already. And of course, there are issues concerning accountability. I mean, a classic example is about the driverless car. That, by the way, in principle, we should have already, if we consider some of, past reports already in 2019, and we still don't have it. we have something going around. For example, in Tallinn, where I live, there is a minibus in Kadriorg Park that is a driverless bus, but it's just doing a very short, trip nearby the park. So we still don't have a lot of cars going around, but still we could have it. And this poses problem of accountability if you think about incidents. If there is a car incident, who is accountable for it, right? So these are, of course, questions to take into account, right? What else? In terms of the digital transition, that I remind you that nowadays we are talking about also something called the twin transition, that is digital and green transition. So it's how not only to have digital tools that can improve innovation, but also how to make this innovation sustainable. And also we have to think about, if you think about the current policies of the European Union, it seems sometimes, as some of my colleagues here in Turin said, that the digital transition, digitalization seems something like a good thing per se, without taking into account all the consequences and also where these, different digital tools can be applied efficiently and also effectiveness, with some effectiveness. Because it depends also not only of the presence of different infrastructure, but also the accessibility and also digital skills that are available in a specific territory. Without this, you risk to have also the typical cathedrals in the desert, right? So this is also something to consider. Now, speaking about the second presentation, let's say it confirmed to me that we are, forced in the European Union more and more to stretch as much as we can the current treaties. As I always said, when Draghi did this famous speech, whatever it takes, and also the subsequent speeches regarding the policies connected with the whatever it takes, probably he had a group of lawyers nearby more than economists. The problem is also how much you can stretch, how much, and this is also, I think, what Professor Giustiniani said, like how much you can, interpret the letter of the law instead of the spirit, without undermining too much, the proposed legislation. At the same time, we also have to consider that health policies before the pandemic, they were always considered a mostly national policy. If you think about Italy, for example, we have also shared competencies with the regions. So sometimes, I heard people, I don't know if this is impressive of Professor Giustiniani as well, people that want a European legislation that not even unitary states they have. So we have to think about it in any case, whatever legislation we will have at the end, even with the reform of the treaties, will be still a shared competence, right? At the same time, I wonder at this point, after, a couple of years since the end of the pandemic, what is our current situation like now? We know that the national policies after the pandemic were improved in terms of preparation for future pandemics. I wonder if in terms of the European Union, we are ready for the next pandemic, whenever we will be. And also if the proposals that are now, discussed, they would be sufficient. I have no idea, so I'm asking here. Definitely, if we consider outside the European Union at the global perspective, here I'm taking an interview by Professor Brown from University of Leeds, were interviewing him during May 2020, and they were asking, how we can, improve the current global governance health system. And unfortunately, he was very pessimistic and saying that nowadays we have 4,000 agents in the world, probably, if you consider national institutions, NGOs, international organizations, and so on, that they have to coordinate. You can understand that this is basically impossible. It's just fragmentation and continuously fragmentation. And if you consider the COVID treated, at the moment, I saw that is kind of, at the moment, really the draft of the draft of the draft. So I don't know what would be, the future in this sense, and how European Union can try to push a little bit more the agenda in this sense. But we'll see. Okay, I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. We have also another ask, please.
Thank you. I have a question for Professor Giorgio Giustiniani, because what appeared in your talk, but also in your conceptual discussion, was the concept of competence creeping, which also goes back to the idea of stretching the current competences. So I was wondering if, because I used this concept also for my presentation, because in a certain point, competence creep was a very hot topic. Now is a bit receding, but it's not a necessary evil when the competence are blocked, and there are, in a context of crisis, you are asked, or at least there is a clear demand for action, and you have to find somehow a grimaldello or a passepartout to pass a kind of legislation. Now, I'm not saying that competence creep is positive, but it could be seen as a necessary evil in given the specific situation. And I was wondering if there is a evolution in the European Court of Justice jurisprudence in order to be a more lenient or less lenient or more rigorous, in order to take into account the contextual situation in which some actions from the proposals from the European Commission could be justified as competence creeping or not. So I'm wondering if there is a kind of discretional evaluation, which is up to the European Court of Justice to evaluate when competence creeping is a necessary evil or is relative evils, which is better than the consequences of doing nothing in order to respect the legal competencies.
Thank you. Please, Roberto.
Two short questions for Armando. You gave us an overview of the situation and so on, but I also would like to have your opinion about if the European legislation in the attempt to regulate artificial intelligence, the digital market and so on, is going in the right direction regarding accountability, responsibility, and if it can become a reference for other areas of the world and for global regulation. Because at the end of the day, this is the first attempt to try to regulate these things. So many things may go wrong as it's a first attempt. At the same time, it can become a reference. And what is the debate on this aspect? Well, for Flavia, I would like her to reflect on a paradox, in my view, regarding health. That sometimes the greatest success of the EU from the public opinion perspective are those where the EU has less power and competencies. Because at the end of the day, the vaccines during the pandemic is a little bit like Erasmus Plus on education. The European Union only has a support competence. It can only do a little bit to support the national policy and so on. It cannot define the goals and so on. But from a public opinion perspective, these are the two greatest successes of the EU. And this is kind of a paradox because, in fact, in real terms, we can say that the European Union provides public goods in terms of single market, single currency, Schengen, rule of law, in everything. But from a public opinion perspective, paradoxically, sometimes the most successful action of the Union come in area where the companies are very limited. So how can we conceptualize this paradox and how can we use it in a way to strengthen those competencies of the Union in those areas where there was a success? So there should be some public opinion support and consensus also to strengthen those competencies.
Thank you. Armando?
Here I am. So thanks so much, Roberto, for this very interesting question, to which I could answer just with my own opinion. So I think all the European Union legislation about artificial intelligence is going in the right way, just in my opinion. I mean that the efforts the European Union made to reach a certain point about the interests worked by treated by artificial intelligence are good. But as I said before, in the field of corporate law, it's just the field I try to investigate, it's just a part of the work we need. I mean, exactly that. The main focus was on the side of the transparency of the tools using artificial intelligence. But the problem is, maybe the problem is that we still consider artificial intelligence not in the exact way it is. I mean, that till now, artificial intelligence and digitalization have been some equivalent terms, such as with a same approach. In a side, we put the man, in the other side, the machine, between man and machine, the tools, the digital tools. Now the problem is that artificial intelligence is arising in some places nearly at the same level of the human being intelligence. So when you use some terms in the legislation as referring to the control of the artificial intelligence, you have to consider that you are talking with someone is near equivalent to you, but has not a human being, but as an artificial being. So what kind of competencies we need to deal with the artificial intelligence? Because it is not enough for me to say that artificial intelligence is controlled by man, but man is able to control artificial intelligence in the same way they work together. Not in the meantime you project the artificial intelligence, but as soon as artificial intelligence starts to work close to you. So related to the organization of a corporate, as I said, for example, who is the boss of that worker, the reader, for example, the writer, for example, is it a human being or is it a platform? For example, I give you an example. The position of the day of work of a writer are distributed during the week, not more by a human being, by the platform, due to the previous results of the deliveries of that man. For example, if I've not worked very well for the platform, because, for example, I was on delay, I was far from the place of the delivery, I delivered something not good in the opinion of the one who received, and so on. The day later, I could not, the same writer could not still choose the same parts of the day to work. But for example, the platform decided he can work just from midnight to 6 in the morning, or for example, in the Christmas day or Easter day or some other day, because in the hierarchic level, he is on the lower level, because the platform collected the results of his way of work and put him on the lower level. So is still a man, the executive with human resource, the LC, human resource chief, or is it the platform and the man who deal, the consumers who deal with the platform? And when, for example, you are in the board, is it still, as I said, the general counsel suggesting the achievement of some results, or, for example, is it the results of the platform given directly to the board? So the problem is right now, for corporate law in particular, not only ensure the transparency of intelligence, artificial intelligence, in the moment we put on inside of a computer the algorithm, but the way we can deal with it, because which is the controller and which role does he play in the structure of the corporate. This is not clear, in my opinion. There is a lack. We have to improve legislation in this part, because we have to, and I am finishing with this consideration, and I hope to have answered to your question, Roberto. We have, in my opinion, to move from a perspective more used by my colleagues, if they consent, I call them colleagues, in which we try to use the same legislation we have since nearly 1942 in Italy, for example, just adapted during these decades to the new situation, or we have to produce a new legislation. In my opinion, we need a new legislation. We can continue just to move from what we have, consider, for example, the same term as applied to artificial intelligence. We can consider, we can go on in this way. I give you an example. We can go considering, for example, that the board is or the top executive are composed just by human beings. This is not the real time. We have to write in the civil code that some function of top executive are played by digital tools. If we do so, maybe all will be clearer than now. So if you ask me, is it good what European Union still right now stated, I say yes. But this is just a part. Now we need a path. So my goal to be today is to apply what is just in theory conceived. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we will, Professor Giustiniani, would you answer?
Yeah, sure. Thank you first of all for the very interesting questions. Well, what I can say with respect to competence creep in health matters is that I share the opinion expressed by, especially by Roberto, that competence creep can be, in fact, important sometimes to progress the integration further. So it can be also a necessary evil, but a temporary evil. And in fact, we cannot do more as long as the current treaties are concerned. The Court of Justice has been very, very lenient, I would say. So it has favored the adoption of this legislation, which in fact utilizes in particular Article 114, so the internal market legal basis, also for measures that concern primarily, in fact, health matters. But at the same time, competence creep has some problems with respect to the last act, which is in progress of being adopted, the European Health Data Space. In particular, the risk is of creeping privatization of the public health sector. So this is an additional problem. So there is a risk of corporate dominance. And this risk can be associated with the problems due to the recourse to the legal basis of the internal market. Because remember, first of all, that in the end, it is a legitimacy problem. So competence creep can be an instrument important, for instance, in times of emergencies. During the pandemic, it was essential, but then when the emergencies has finished, we have to try to go back again to what is really authorized by the treaties. And you have to consider, in particular with respect to health, that in the Council of Ministers, there is no specific ministerial representation for health. And so while there are national health departments at EU level, in fact, health matters are discussed by different ministerial departments that have no specific competence and knowledge concerning health. And so this is an important problem that have as a result that health rights and values could not be rightly understood and took into consideration both at national level, but for what we are discussing now today at EU level. So this is a big problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Both we have highlight very big matters, and maybe like Roberto said before, we have two sides of matters: a legislative side, but also cultural and societal side. Maybe we have to work on the sensibilization of people, of citizens towards health, public health, but also towards the best use of artificial intelligence. Thanks again, and we see later at 3 o'clock.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.